Good evening, everybody. Nice to have you on board today. Today, tomorrow, yesterday, I'm not quite sure what time it is or what day it is. But what a day of action we had yesterday. Obviously, we've already had some of today's action underway. I hope you'll forgive me that I haven't been able to record this any sooner. I just got to my hotel about an hour ago in New York. I will be heading to Flushing Meadow tomorrow, but this evening, having just arrived, it's pretty late in the day now for me, and it's been a long one, and I'm super hungry. Anyway, that's me. Let's not talk about me, though. Let's talk about yesterday's action at Flushing Meadow, because it was an incredible day. Pinpointed, earmarked, I don't know what the expression is, but the main thing is the biggest news story out of Flushing Meadow yesterday was the result between Frances Tiafoe and Rafael Nadal, where the American emerged in 4 sets. It was the landmark result, I would suggest, of yesterday's action. There was obviously lots of other action going on, and we'll just touch on that right now before I go in for a bit of a deeper dive on that Tiafoe-Nadal match, which occurred before I left home last night. Pegula also went through in straight sets, as we can see. She was up earlier on in the day on Ash. Fairly rudimentary victory for her over Kvitova for the number 21 seed. Daniel Collins Sabalenka, I'll also be going into that match. Sabalenka, really surprising comeback win for me, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised given the way she turned around 1 or 2 other matches early on in the tournament. Rublev Norrie, I called it. It's not very often I get to call these matches correctly, but on this one, I did think that Rublev would emerge victorious, albeit I probably didn't quite see him winning as comfortably. What was the thing for me for Rublev? Because this was early on in the day, or it was actually on Louis Armstrong court. The thing with that match was I took a lot of stock from Rublev's win against Shapovalov. I thought that was actually really impressive, the way the Russian came through that particular match. And I just think that when they're both at their best, Rublev wins. And he did. Okay, so that was in straight sets early on in the day, but a lot of disappointment for Norrie. Let me know what your thoughts were on this match. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch it, so it would be great to hear from you what you thought about the Norrie-Rublev match, and how far can Rublev go, particularly after, obviously, the shocking result involving Rafael Nadal. Let's focus on that match now, at least to begin today's show, before we go for a little bit of a look around some of the other matches and also a deeper dive on the Sabalenka match, like I said. Okay, what went right for Frances Tiafoe? Well, the serve. The serve was unbelievable. Let's have a quick look at some of the stats from that. 18 aces from the American, 9 from Nadal. I would say 9 from Nadal is about normal over a 4-set match, to be honest with you. I actually thought Nadal served quite well. I know certain people have dwelled a bit on his serve during this tournament, but I actually think he served pretty well, and he did serve fine yesterday. Yes, there were some double faults, 9 of which, but it was largely because Rafa was going big on his second serve, sometimes in excess of 110 miles an hour, almost as fast as his first serve. He was taking chances. I think he wanted to shorten the points. For various reasons. I don't know how he was feeling physically. I think in general, I think he could have done with a few more matches. We saw with Djokovic, for example, in the clay court season, as he began the clay court season, he was struggling a bit physically in those early matches. And I think when you have a couple of months with barely playing any matches, don't forget, it's probably been about 2 and a bit months. And in that time, before this tournament, Nadal had played 1 match. And I do think during that 4th set, and even some other moments of the match, I do think Rafa was struggling a bit physically. Not to say he had an injury, not at all, but I just think that going like 4, 5 sets, I even speculated on yesterday's review whether if this match was to go to a 5th set, how Nadal would be physically, given that he's barely played in the last 2 months. But listen, lights out tennis from Frances Tiafoe at times, and he got his just rewards. His backhand was phenomenal at times, and in fact, the amount of winners that he produced was also a phenomenal, point to note from yesterday's match. I think Nadal couldn't really get through Tiafoe. He wasn't producing a number of winners that he would be hoping for, but Tiafoe was just Very consistent, and very consistent is quite impressive considering just how aggressive Tiafoe was. Lights out tennis. By the way, the first set though was still just about a case of one break, but it was a set and a half. In fact, it was almost two sets before Nadal even forced a break point on the Tiafoe serve. And by the way, that game that Nadal won at the end of the second set that meant it go into a third set at one set all was kind of, there was a few variables. There was one, for example, when Tiafoe on the backhand decides to let it go. He's looking down at it, but he's so convinced it's going out, he lets it bounce and just sort of doesn't react in time because it actually hits the line. That ends up helping Nadal bring up break points, and on the second of which, it was a Frances Tiafoe double fault, which actually I put a picture of on Twitter. So check out at Talking Tennis TT on Twitter for that. It was millimeters out. Anyway, Nadal gets it back on, and probably you, like many of us, thought that it would be now, okay, Nadal's going to end up going through in 4 or perhaps 5 sets. Not a bit of it. Tiafoe, roared on by the home crowd, who, by the way, were starting to warm to the American. You would imagine that he would have more of the home support, but many people within the stadium, I wasn't fortunate enough to be in the stadium, but many of the people that were said that it was actually slightly more in favor of the Spaniard at the beginning. But as Tiafoe was showing off all of his unbelievable tennis, it ended up swinging perhaps in his favor. And we saw some of those marvelous images from the stadium of them giving him support. And they roared him on to that third set, and they roared him on to the fourth set. But of course, there were some caveats in that fourth set. Nadal gets an early break. Again, we're probably thinking 3-1 up in that set. Now Nadal is going to begin his comeback like he's done so many times before. The American was going nowhere, and he won 5 games in a row. Nadal possibly helping him somewhat. I mean, in the final game of the match, Nadal goes down love 40 very quickly. Again, there does seem to be a lack of... I mentioned it in Cincinnati with Nadal, actually. It was just a flat performance from Nadal in Cincinnati. And I would say it's been a flat North American swing because this tournament has been flat. And that's just something we very rarely say about Nadal. I think... Obviously, having that injury in July against France, against Taylor Fritz, meant that he had to have a bit of a layoff, particularly regarding the serve. It meant he couldn't come back in time for Montreal. I think had he been at Montreal and had he had a better run there, or if he'd have had a better run in Cincinnati, perhaps things could have been different. Ifs, buts, maybes. Even the Spaniard himself, though, said before, if. All we can say is Tiafoe, unbelievable. Just quickly before we conclude on this, Nadal there saying he had a great time, as always here in New York. Sad for the loss and for leaving, but happy to go back home, take care of important things to come. And we all know what he means by that, with obviously having a son coming up soon. See you next year, which is something he also said just after the defeat. And there we have an image of him before he leaves New York. What else do I want to say about this match, though? Tiafoe, Nadal never got to grips with Tiafoe's serve. Not only just from the 18 aces and the 4 double faults. Nadal was struggling to read it. We saw so many times that after not getting a break point until the end of the second set, we saw Nadal guessing on the first serve from Tiafoe. When he guessed right, by the way, Nadal did really well and did do some excellent returns. But he was actually guessing wrong. I don't know. It felt like more than 50% of the time. He just couldn't get a read on it. And this is something else I mentioned in the preview, that there wasn't much of a sample size for us to know exactly how this would pan out. And I think that helped the American, particularly in the early stages of the match, before Nadal could even really get a look in on his serve. We also mentioned the double faults there. Like I say, that's just down to Nadal taking huge risks. But he couldn't really hit the winners he was having. He was hitting short too often, and he just wasn't making an impression on the match. Let's go to the live chat, because I'm sure some of you have got some things to say. Boom, 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 boom. Hi, John. Hope all is well. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I arrived in New York a few hours ago. Took me a while to come through customs, as it so often does. for somebody visiting the US. But here I am, a bit tired. Hopefully going to catch up on some of the action. I just saw some of the closing stages of the Tomjanovic on Jabeur match. That was nice. I caught that on the TV. I'm not going to go to Flushing Meadows today, but I'll be there tomorrow. Yes, Rublev did play very well. Okay, thanks for that, because I didn't see that match. And hats off to him. You know, straight sets against Cam Norrie. And by the way, his average third set speed was at 121 miles an hour. That's pretty good. Is that from Rublev? You're saying his average serve speed by 3700, or is that Rafa's serve speed? Yeah, his serve was fine. Also, didn't make any of his poor shot selection. Agree, Cathy. Couldn't agree more. The Nadal Tiafoe match hurts your soul. It did hurt Rafa's soul too, but Nadal did say, look, in a few days, you know, things will move on. And good to hear that he'll be back on the practice court soon. I am maybe in the minority. I know Gil Gross doesn't expect to see much of Nadal in the coming weeks, or perhaps even for the rest of this season. I, on the other hand, do expect to see Nadal at the end of year's finals, and maybe even in Paris-Bercy. He has committed to the Laver Cup as well, so that would be how I see his year ending. I do think he'll be at those three tournaments. He may pull out the Laver Cup should things happen, of course, in terms of his private life, with obviously a son on the horizon, and maybe even a Paris-Bercy as well. But I think we'll see him at the end of year finals. Maybe I'm wrong. Is Tiafoe a better big match player than Fritz? Tiafoe, we haven't seen him play enough, let's say, quarterfinals at majors. Maybe you could say the same about Fritz, to be fair. Listen, on the small sample size we have from both players, the answer is yes. Nick, hi. I'm actually going to go in the daytime tomorrow, but I may be tempted into staying on for the night. Let's see. I'll be there for the daytime. I know it's not quite so rock and roll, but the ticket's a little bit cheaper. But let's see, because nighttime looks really rock and roll, obviously, with Alcaraz playing tomorrow night and Iga as well. What do you make of the channel? But that's a good point, actually. I thought that was kind of odd. And of course, he lost his serve there. That was the beginning of the fourth set when they decided to close the roof for that. And you know, at other tournaments, they, you know, halt play for 5 minutes while they close the roof. Of course, normally it's as the rain is coming down, but this time it was a preemptive decision. But you could hear it on the TV, and it certainly just seemed to disrupt Tiafoe. Nadal was asked if it disrupted him in his press conference afterwards. Magnanimously, he said, listen, I wasn't disrupted really by it, because it was unfortunate for Francis that he was serving at the time. And of course, he did lose his serve. I think it was very unfortunate. Surely there should be a rule on that, which should be got away, because not only is the noise disruption, because people are generally, even in New York, quiet as people are taking the serve, but also don't forget you're bouncing the ball and you're having a look, and it could well be a distraction. And Tiafoe was broken, but fortunately it didn't really change the result of the match, because Tiafoe went on to win 5 games in a row. I have heard some bigger, more drastic comments regarding Rafa. Of course, this is the first time in over 5 years that he hasn't made the quarterfinal of a major that he's competed in. But I think it's a little bit early to start talking about the death knell for his career, as one or two other people have suggested, or getting a bit too carried away. Yes, he did look laboured. Yes, he did look tired. Yes, it was kind of unusual for Rafa. But listen, it was only a few months ago that he was winning 2 majors and threatening to win a third. So he's had a phenomenal year. And no matter what happens for the rest of the year, that will remain the case. How he's not world number 1 is beyond me. It's a real strange thing. And really, you know, I think we're in a very strange situation with the world rankings here. Obviously, with the Wimbledon points not counting. And various other factors involved. And maybe the world rankings do need to reevaluate some of the point scoring system, because, you know, Nadal didn't lose a match until Indian Wells, and throughout his year he's won he won 3 tournaments, including 2 majors. So 4 tournaments, actually. Sorry, he's won a 250, a 500, and 2 majors. And yet he actually somehow managed to drop in the rankings between Australia and Roland Garros. So you had this really lopsided draw. But we're not here to talk about the rankings. Casper Ruud, of course, will be coming to him in tomorrow's show, because he's been in action today. But we're here just to look at yesterday's action. Okay. We've done a fair deep dive on that one. We've done 15 minutes on that one. Let's try and have a quick look at some of the other action from yesterday and some of the other results. We touched on, obviously, Rublev's mightily impressive straight sets win against Norrie. Pegula as well, going through as we expect. She's obviously going to be playing Iga tomorrow, Iga Swiatek. That should be a good match. I do see that favoring Iga, but who knows? Okay, let's have a look at a couple of other quick ones from earlier on in the day. Azarenka losing out in 3 sets to Pliskova. I didn't see this match, so please let me know in the live chat if anyone has any thoughts on this match, or even just Pliskova's chances at this tournament, how far you see her going. I also couldn't catch Sinner's match, unfortunately. I had to set sail, if you like, for New York, so to speak, and I've posted a few videos about some of my trip, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button as well. So let me know. Sinner, by the way, I'm surprised he got pushed to 5. Of course, it's great that he won. I know he was a breakdown in that 5th set, but being pushed to 5 sets by Ivashka, I'm not quite sure what that says. Of course, he's about to play Carlos Alcaraz, who, by the way, was also pushed to 5 sets by Marin Cilic. Let me know as well what you think about that. I could only watch the first set of that match, which Alcaraz won. I thought it would be a bit more comfortable for the Spaniard. Gets pushed 5 sets. Will now play Sinner. My pre-tournament prediction for Alcaraz Sinner, by the way, was a Sinner win. I'm less convinced now. I'm less convinced. But it is... the reason I went for Sinner before the tournament is just because Sinner has got a bit of an Indian sign over Alcaraz in recent weeks. Obviously winning at Wimbledon. Also winning on the clay recently. Maybe that matchup is slightly favourable for the Italian. But Alcaraz is starting to recover some of the form that he showed earlier this year. So that's certainly a match to look forward to, which will be taking place tomorrow evening here in New York. I said, though, we'd have a quick look, a bit of a deeper look at Swiatek against Niemeyer, by the way, which was over in 3 sets. And I'll come to Sabalenka in a second, but I do want to just touch on this match. Iga there winning 2-6, 6-4, 6-love. Listen, she was a set and a breakdown when this happened. She goes an early breakdown in that second set, and Niemeyer is serving to take a 3-1 lead, but a sweet, sweet, sweet drop volley here we see from Swiatek at the net, just dinking it back over, and Niemeyer couldn't get to it. You can see her scampering now already towards the ball, but she's far too deep. Not her fault. Swiatek had pushed her that deep. She did a reasonably good effort on getting the ball back over the net with some venom, but Swiatek dealt with it like a world number 1 who's looking very good. I think until yesterday she hadn't dropped a set. She has now dropped a set, but maybe that won't do her any harm before playing the American number 8 seed Pegula. And also then once really from that moment onwards, she never looked back. So from 2-1 down in that set, she goes on to win it 6-4. So basically 2-1 down, she wins 5-11 of the next 13 games, if I'm not mistaken, because she closes out with a bagel. She was even asked in her press conference, by the way, a question about the number of bagels she'd done, and she said she's aware of the Twitter account, Svea Iga's Bakery, which is kind of cute. So she's through. Nice, impressive win there, ultimately, after being a little bit on the ropes there against Niemeyer. By the way, Niemeyer, great run for her. Really surprising. What's in store for her? Let me know in the live chat. I'm going to come to the live chat now before we speak about Sabalenka. Pliskova was incredible. Okay, thanks, Meadow, because I didn't see this match. One of the highest level matches of the tournament. More winners than errors. 53 winners. That is insane. Yes, Iga's Bakery is very cute. That's true. Vika was fighting well. Thanks, Meadow, for a few more comments here. Good to see her back to competitiveness-ish, I would suggest. But, of course, she did end up losing. Nick, thanks very much for your comment. Azarenka Pliskova was great. Pliskova was really strong level. No significant diss. Will be close versus Sabalenka. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm glad you mentioned Sabalenka because it's her, Aryna Sabalenka, that I want to speak about now, because this was a match I was able to see before departing for New York. Prevailing 3-6, 6-3, 6-2. And I mentioned how I was surprised about the comeback. That second set, by the way, was super tight and included a particular game with plenty of deuces. I think sort of at the business end that Sabalenka ended up prevailing in. I think she was holding serve. It may well have been at 3-all, 4-3, something like that, 3-all. And she held serve and then went on to break and then ultimately win that set. Lots of breaks of serve in this match, but it was captivating. And I must say, at 1-set-to-love and going with serve in that second set, and when she was on the edge when it came to that, what I actually called on Twitter a potentially pivotal game. Well, it ended up being very pivotal because Sabalenka held and went on to win that set. And really not looking back from that moment onwards, getting a few breaks of serve from that moment onwards. There was a few exchanges of breaks between her and Collins, both playing their usual aggressive tennis. It was a great match, lived up to all the expectations. But maybe I shouldn't be surprised about Sabalenka's mental strength in this match yesterday. Don't forget, it was only a couple of rounds ago when she was a set and a double break down, and she also faced some match points, taking advantage of a net cord on one of those match points to ultimately turn that match around and prevail. That was in the second round. Can't remember who it was against, but I've barely slept since. So hopefully you will forgive me. Listen, a very impressive win. Let me know in the live chat what you think about this match. Were you surprised about this? I think some of us were starting to think maybe Collins was going to repeat her run from Australia, where, of course, she got to the final there. Are you surprised by Sabalenka's mental strength? Like I said, 8 double faults could be less, but still, compared to what we saw early on in the year, I think that's fine, especially when you factor in that she had 8 aces. Double faults there from Collins, by the way, 11. That is high and unusually high, let's say. Talking of high, let me say hi to a few people. Ghost, nice to have you on board. Meadow, we've already touched on. Josh, they're saying, I want Alcaraz to take off now. Yeah, he may well do. He took off at times yesterday, but perhaps still is just searching for that, just a bit more consistency that I think he will need if he is to emerge victorious against Sinner tomorrow. Ghost there as well, suggesting that he was surprised by the comeback. She's been criticized for lack of fitness. Maybe. I think she's fine. She did obviously have a slight issue with a muscle moment yesterday, but it didn't really seem to be affecting her. It was actually a surprise that she took the medical time out because she seemed to be fine in terms of the movement and everything else. But anyway, she emerged victorious. Think it was Kanepi. Yes, it was. Thanks, Nick, for helping me there. Yeah, it was not just saving match points. She was a set and a double breakdown in that match. Unbelievable. Before she prevailed, which is really a good sign that she's emerging from these tight matches, considering that sometimes people have highlighted this perhaps mental frailty that she's maybe overcoming here, also with the double faults, as I suggested. Listen, I think she's in really good shape. I'd like to see it as well. Listen, there's so many players and stories I'd like to see do well. I like Iga, but maybe it's time for somebody else to win a major, albeit, of course, she's not won one at the US as yet. But the Coco Gauff story is amazing. The Garcia story is amazing. And Coco Gauff and Garcia are in action shortly. Talking of which, I want a letter from you once again in the live chat. G for Gauff. Oh, no, this doesn't work. Gauff and Garcia. Let's go for... Oh, it doesn't work. Caroline and Coco. Okay, I need Gauff then. You're going to have to write the whole word out. Gauff or Garcia. Because CG doesn't work either, of course. So, Gauff or Garcia? Who's winning this match? Gauff for Garcia. No, Gauff for Gauff and Garcia for Garcia. Let me know who you think is going to win this match. It's coming up very shortly. I apologize for the delay on the review of yesterday's action, bearing in mind there has been some action already. Nick there going for Garcia. I guess I'm going to have to stick with Gauff, and I'll explain why. Ghost there saying, forgive me, Garcia. So that's 2 for Garcia, 1 for Gauff. I'm going for Gauff for a couple of reasons. One, because I had her in my predictions at the beginning of the tournament, and I know that really shouldn't affect things too much. But I do think that we've seen enough from both players to suggest that it's really 50-50 stuff. And I don't know about Garcia. I've seen some things from Goff. We obviously get into a French Open final earlier this year. She has what it takes to get to a major final, even at her age. I also think perhaps the home crowd might help her. I also think that her return of serve and her backhand should stand her in good stead against Garcia. But hey, what do I know? And I just don't know. I've seen some things in the past, and I've mentioned them before on the pod before. Meta, they're also going for Garcia, so I'm obviously outnumbered here 3-1. I know as well Garcia, by the way, was Pam Shriver's pre-tournament pick. I've obviously got ESPN on here, so that's cool. By the way, let me know on Twitter if you'd like me to do a watch along. I might be able to do a watch along for that Garcia match. Nick as well, if you fancy doing it. I don't know if it's a bit too late for you, but might do a watch along for that, and could do with some expertise, and I might even have a TV that's pretty much up to date. So I might do a watch along for that one. I don't know. I'll see how I feel. I need to quickly nip out and get something to eat, and I think the match will be in about 45 minutes. So gonna have to be pretty quick. And I'm in my hotel room. Maybe I should be doing something better than doing watch alongs. Garcia's the better form, but it depends how she handles the American crowd on Ash. That's what will decide the match. Good point there. But like I say, I'm going to stick with Goff. I think she's been great in this tournament. Yes, she's probably looked a little bit more vulnerable than Garcia, but not by much. Meta, they're suggesting the Coco serve will dictate the match. Well, that is probably something that's still a question mark at this tournament in particular. I mentioned it before that I think Coco would probably rather receive serve than serve. Okay. Yeah, don't worry. I mean, you don't have Twitter Ghost. Yeah, so I put an image up of that one yesterday on Twitter. That fine line one with Rafa Nadal against Tiafoe. Sorry, I'm losing it. Anyway, listen, Ghost. I might do a watch along. I might miss the first few games, but we'll see how that pans out. Cool. Listen. Everybody, world, hopefully I've done a little bit on yesterday's action. Sorry for the delay. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. I'll be giving a review of today's action tomorrow, if that makes sense. Hopefully a bit earlier in the day. And I will be at Flushing Meadow tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. Finally getting to see some live tennis action. First time, I think, since Wimbledon I've been to see any matches. I guess it's not that long ago. But listen. World, tennis world, thanks for stopping by. Good evening from the Big Apple. And let's have some fun tonight. Oh, I guess I should ask about Kyrgios Khachanov. KY for Kyrgios, and KH for Khachanov. The first person to write in the chat who they think is going to win out of Kyrgios and Khachanov gets a mention on the screen and gets kudos. I am going to go for Kyrgios in 4, but maybe I'll be supporting Khachanov. Khachanov is just a nice guy. Jane there going for Khachanov. Oh, that surprises me. Nick there going for Kyrgios. Yeah, I make Kyrgios the favourite. I would have thought that will be done there in 4 from Kyrgios. Anyway, listen, now you've got your comments in. Thanks for those. Got your predictions in. Tennis world, and especially New York. Thanks for stopping by.